Yo, AFTV Picks is giving away 5 PS5s. Not 1, not 2, but 5 PS5s. 5! All you got to do to enter is go onto AFTV Picks, answer the simple question, and one of these PS5s could be yours. You can enter by going online. You can even do it old school by sending it in by post. But make sure you get on it right now. We've got 5 of them to give away, so do it right now. You have to be over 18 to enter, but answer that simple question, and one of these 5 could be yours. So enter now. 5!
How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Supporters Club. It's been a little while, but I think it's needed. End of the season. There's a lot to talk about. And I've got some familiar faces with me today. Curtis, appreciate you coming down.
Happy to be here, bro.
James.
How you doing?
I'm getting bored of seeing you, mate.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
And Julian.
I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to build on the conversation we had the other day.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. So today, like I said, there's a lot to talk about. Where do we go from here? That's the main question I'm going to pose to this esteemed panel of guests. Let me start with Curtis, because I haven't heard from you in a little while, Curtis. It's been a little while since we've been together. Season over, 8th place finish, no Europe, Mikel Arteta, Edu Vinay, still in a job, Kroenke digging his heels in. Where do we go from here?
Carabao Cup success, I think. A big day at Wembley in March. Oh man, they need to have the summer of all summers. I don't think it's just about headline names. It's not about, going to buy the superstars. It's about buying the right players. I know we always talk about Liverpool and Klopp and Harper on, but a lot of his signings weren't the biggest of names. Mane came from Southampton, Salah was at Roma, but they were the right players for his system. And I think that's what we need now. We need that partner to play with Partey. Our midfield's needed fixing for years. We get little bits and bobs, but we never completely sort it out in one window. We need a right back. We need to, I think selling players is as important as who we buy this summer. No Europe, so we need to trim down the squad. In terms of Arteta, I'm not going to harper on too much about him, but I think he is very, very lucky to still be employed.
I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, he's lucky.
And when I'm hearing Antonio Conte's out of work, I know a lot of people will say he wouldn't come to Arsenal, but you wouldn't have expected Mourinho to go to Tottenham. If you write a big enough check, if you make that project sound exciting for him, he might take it, you never know. But I think they should at least be making a phone call and just saying, would you be interested? What would it take to get you it?
Imagine having on your CV that you brought Arsenal back to where they belong.
Yeah.
That's certainly one of the most, attainable targets, becoming an Arsenal manager, because we've fallen off so far that if a manager comes in and even takes us back into top 4, that manager will be put on a pedestal. It's not enough, as we saw. But I completely agree, Julian.
It would be enough for next season to get top 4. So it would be easier for a manager to come in our present state. If I was looking for a job, I wouldn't want to go into a team that was just won the championship. I think the hardest job in football was going in after Ferguson. Mm-hmm. He was never. Moyes was on a hiding to nothing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. What about going into the job after Wenger? Although it wasn't as successful as, how Fergie left football, I still think it was a big thing going in post-Wenger.
I think the difference with Wenger was that he'd really put his stamp on that team, the way he wanted to play, and the whole club was based around Wenger. Yeah. So it was very difficult to then change things.
Yeah.
Looking back at Wenger, even at the time, I think he stayed on 5 years too long. And he didn't do himself any favours as regards his reputation. He could have left with his head held high and not be kicked out, because, let's face it, that's basically what happened.
Yeah. It is, mutual termination, pretty much. The club went to him. You said you completely agree with Curtis when he mentioned signing players that we don't necessarily need at the time. Maybe needing a centre-back, signing a winger.
Yeah. The Arteta conversation, as Laurie likes to remind us, feels a little redundant. We know he's staying, unless they pull a madness suddenly because all these managers are available, but I don't think they will. So, okay, we put it to bed. We all know how we feel. Arteta's staying though. What I want to see from Mikel, mainly him, I know Edu's got a job to do and Josh has got to put the money and all that. I want Mikel to look at this and just think, this is a big chance that, let's be honest, he was lucky to get. And this is his chance to prove to everyone that there's something about him. And I think he kind of showed that with winning the FA Cup. And I think he's shown little glimpses. I do think there's a good coach there. Go to Edu and say, this is the football I want to play. This is the profile of team I want. These are the players I want. And just go at it. Don't get Basuma because, you know what, Aouar's not available. Yeah, but Basuma and Aouar are completely different players. I remember last summer, Fabrizio Romano, who was spot on, said Arsenal want one of Aouar or Partey.
Doesn't make sense.
And I'm sitting there thinking, well, first, we need both.
Yeah.
But also, what do you mean one or the other? They're completely different players.
Yeah.
And that's what really frustrates me is I'm sort of sitting there thinking, I'm hearing, well, David Luiz is out the door. He's not been given a contract. But we're hearing what he wants an experienced Premier League centre-back. In fairness, Luiz was doing that this year. But then Saliba's going to get another chance. Who are we linked with? Edmund Tapsoba from Bayer Leverkusen, who's 22 years old. And I mean this, I know we want signings to come in quickly and stuff. Just take a couple of weeks, think about what you want, and then go tackle. You've got the Euros, which is a nice delay and a nice kind of distraction.
Yeah.
Think about what you want and go get it done, because there seems to be a little bit of a mismatch in terms of what we hear the club want to do, the players we're linked with. We'll end up signing Jerome Boateng, but do you know what I mean? That's the first thing I think the club needs to do, is just understand what they want to do this summer.
And I think the initial interest in Aouar last summer highlighted to me that we need creativity in the middle. Not that it needed to be highlighted, but when we started the season, we could see how much we needed it. And that gave me an idea of what Arteta wanted to do. But when you flip it from Aouar to Partey, it's like, was Partey essentially given to him and made to work with?
But I think at the time we needed both of them.
Oh, definitely.
But then you've got to ask the question, do we need Aouar now with Smith Rowe coming through?
Well, Aouar can play a bit deeper in the centre mid role, which would be a good option.
Yeah.
Especially if Basuma. You mentioned Basuma. I would buy Basuma and Aouar this summer because I think them two could be a great partnership, and I think either of them can work with Thomas Partey.
Yeah.
But that's the interesting thing. So what does he want of Thomas Partey? Because in our biggest games, which were the Villarreal ties, plays him as the lone holding midfielder with two central midfielders told to hug the touchline. Never seen anything like it. You know, only for then it all goes to pot and he goes, right, that's it. Elneny comes in and we start seeing the Partey we thought we were going to get. So what does he? I thought the Brighton game, he was class. He was sort of running things. This is my biggest worry. And we've had a lot of debates and discussion about it. I don't think Arteta's a bad manager. I really don't. I don't think he's a good. I don't think he's done anything to prove he's a good or a great one. But I don't think he's a bad manager. What I mean by that, I don't think we're gonna. A lot of people will say we've regressed since he's come in. I don't think we've regressed. I just don't think we really progressed how we wanted, if progressed at all. But this is what I want more than anything. Stop trying to. Well, I want to play this way, but I don't quite have the players, so I'm going to do kind of a mix in between.
Yeah.
Decide what you want to do and go tackle it head on this summer. And if it means instead of Aouar you get John McGinn, who's a great player, but you get what I mean, considered a step down, fine, but get the profile right.
And I think you're right. You started this bit saying that Arteta's going to be manager next season. And the conversation of Arteta is pretty much redundant. Do you feel it's redundant now, Curtis? Because you're someone who earlier in the season, before even I questioned the manager's credentials, let's say, spoke out about him and deemed to be right when you look at the season we've had. Is the conversation on Arteta redundant now? Should we focus our attention more to Kroenke and the people above? Yeah. Or do we continue putting the pressure, or some of the pressure, on Mikel?
I think there's pressure on him to perform. Like you said, the question of him going, I think, is out the door. We've heard him talk. He's talking with a lot of chest about next season. He knows he's had that phone call from Josh. Don't worry, you've got next season. That's fair enough. If you're going to keep him, now you've got to produce. I think the excuses now are going for Mikel Arteta. You've got that full pre-season that you've kept speaking about. There's no Europe. You've got all week on the training ground. I actually want to see how good a coach he is now, because we talk about transfers and all these players. I want to see you get the best of Pepe. I want to see you integrate Saliba into that back four. Do your job with what you've actually got before you start thinking about who you bring in. To me, there's enough talent there for Arsenal to compete. Whether they get top four is a different story. I suppose the positive you can look at, we have been better since Christmas. We have finished 6 points off. They're not things to celebrate, but at least you can say there is an element of progress.
Yeah.
It's about sustaining it now for the whole season, and I think with Arteta this season, there's nowhere to hide. The fans will be there. You've had enough time now. If you're not where you need to be by Christmas, I think, then they've got a decision to make.
Yeah.
I'd agree. Julian, question. If you could get rid of one entity this summer, one of them is Mikel Arteta, one of them is Kroenke, and the other is in the in-between, Edu, Vinay and the board. If you could choose one to get rid of, who would it be?
At the moment, it would be the ones in between.
The Edus, Vinays and Chips. Well,
Yeah.
Chips is gone, but Lord
Yeah.
Harris of Peckham and so on.
Yeah, I'm not convinced by Arteta either way. What I've always said was if we don't give him time, we're never going to find out. I'm the same with the Kroenkes. The discussion that we had on Sunday, it was very thought-provoking. What I said and the questions that I asked was because I want to be told and educated in why we should get rid of the Kroenkes.
Yeah.
I don't just want to be told, get rid of the Kroenkes, and then we'll say, yeah, let's get rid of the Kroenkes. Outside the ground on Sunday, a guy came up to me, gave me a placard, hold that up. I said, why? He goes, because we want the Kroenkes out. I said, I don't know whether I want the Kroenkes out. I said, why do you want the Kroenkes out? And he was like, stumped, absolutely stumped. Didn't have the answers. So what I'm asking for is the answers of why we want the Kroenkes out, and then I'll make an informed decision based on that.
And we spoke about the conversation we had
And we
before.
spoke about that, and things that you said resonated with me.
Yeah.
Resonated with me enough to want to kind of research it more. When I went up for that discussion, it wasn't how I thought that fan cam was going to go.
Turkish had his eyes on it for a while. When's Julian up?
And Kroenke is the buzzword for me. So,
So the word Kroenke's coming. I said to you earlier, I didn't notice that you were there.
Yeah.
I thought I was just going to have a little banter with Robbie, and suddenly you appeared, and it was a good thing.
it was, and the people loved it.
Yeah.
We mentioned the comments, and I like that we can show that we disagree completely on this. And at that point, it was completely.
No, I don't think we do disagree totally.
Yeah.
Where you are is one extreme. Where I am at the moment is I'm undecided. I'm a floating voter.
In limbo, let's say.
I'm willing to be sort of pulled either way, but I want to do my research. And part of the research is talking to you.
Yeah.
And you have some good stats.
So let's hope I can pull you into this side.
Yeah, but look, I've looked at things since. I mean, you gave me 24 hours warning about today. So I've done a little bit of research myself.
Any particular findings that you want to mention?
Yeah, I kind of looked at it, and I always like to use analogies. And
With the ex-wife one coming back?
No, well, I think we'll leave that one. It brought back very bad memories. I tell you what the Kroenkes remind me of. They remind me of a pilot that was flying a particular plane that crashed, which obviously sounds very negative on the Kroenkes, but this was a particular specific case.
What, is this when Denzel played the actor?
Not that particular one. It was actually a real case. I think it was, I'll sound like a complete anorak now, a JL123. It was a Japanese airline. Okay. It was quite a famous case where the back of the plane blew off and it took about 50 minutes for it to crash. Pretty much everyone died. Terrible situation. But when they looked at the reasons, it was something that happened in 1978 and the crash was in 1985. And I kind of go back to when the Kroenkes took over. And one thing you said to me was about, they took over, we'd been in the Champions League final, and we were the Invincibles.
And top 5 globally, yeah.
Top 5 globally, everything was great. And when you said that, I thought, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. You kind of stumped me at that point. And I've gone back, and at the time I didn't know. And I look back, and I look back at the Invincibles, and then I look back at the team. I think it was like April 29th, 2007, we played Fulham. And I looked at the difference of those two teams. And it's going to be a bit of a memory test now of who had left, but this is on spec. Okay, so from the Invincibles, who had left by the time the Kroenkes came? And I'll try and name them. Ashley Cole, gone. Sol Campbell, gone. I know he came back. Perez had gone. Henri hadn't gone, but he never played under the Kroenkes. He got injured. Bergkamp. Vieira had gone. He went in 2005. I think it was about 9 that had gone. Pretty much the whole team. Lundberg had gone. And then I looked at that team against Fulham, and we had Lehmann in goal. He was 37, so he's coming to the end of his career. We had Clichy, who was still a young boy. So, not a bad player, but pretty young. On the other side, we had Aboué, and obviously the joke was we're coming to see Aboué. We actually weren't that great. In the centre, I think we had
Gilberto was still around.
Gilberto was still around. I think we had Touré in the centre. I think we had Senderos with him. Not great. In midfield, we definitely had Silva. We had Fabregas, but he was young. He was young, and we had Hleb, really great player. I remember up front we had Baptista.
Julian. Hat-trick in the League Cup.
We had Baptista, and we had Adebayor, who I wasn't a great fan of. And the one thing I do remember is there was one substitute, and it was Denilson on 71 minutes. And I look at the difference. So you were kind of right, but you were wrong because of the time. It's very difficult to remember. By the time they got there, kind of the best days were over. If I was them from a footballing perspective, and hindsight's such a great thing, that the last thing I would want to do from a footballing perspective is buy Arsenal at that time. They'd had their great times, and that team, the guts had just been ripped out of it. And that's not the only point. But
on that point, I just want to go to Curtis and James, because you make a good point there, and something I want to ask is, it's actually something I've never thought about. I blame Wenger for a lot of this because I trusted Wenger, and I believe that the trust I put in Wenger was let down by the Kroenkes. Now, let me play devil's advocate for once regarding the Kroenkes here, because you raise a good point. Do you think the Kroenkes trusted Wenger too much as well, and he also let them down? Or do you think he was used how I believe he was used and manipulated? Let me start with you, James. Do you think potentially Wenger let them down as much as he let us down? Because it's thought-provoking,
it's a
and
great
you
question.
raised a very good.
Blimey, that's loaded. I always felt Wenger, and part of his decline was that he had way too much to do at that club. I do think that's a part of it. Do you remember when he came in? It was, he was reinventing football. He was reinventing nutrition. He was reinventing the way we approached professional sport. And I just feel like with time he got bogged down with doing all the AGMs, running the transfers, looking after the academy. That's why in football now you see more first-team coaches rather than managers. Did he let them down as much?
Because
that's hard. I don't know.
He did mention, it was pretty later on in his Arsenal career, what is a director of football? Someone that directs traffic. Now, I completely agree with you that he was
also
left,
the director of football.
Yeah, that he was left to do it all. But when he makes a comment like that, I could potentially see an owner coming to him and saying, we need this. And because of Wenger's name, his legacy, Wenger turning around to them and saying, we don't. Just let me be.
That could well have happened. That could well have happened.
Curtis?
I think when Wenger came to the club, he was ahead of the Premier League in terms of, his thoughts and the nutrition and all that. I think the problem, what happened, football changed and he didn't really change with it because money became the biggest thing, Chelsea and all that. And he was kind of against that. And I think recruitment was a massive problem. I think, he made so many bad signings. For a man that had so much knowledge of the game, you looked at certain players and thought, what have you seen in this guy?
And after a track record of so many good ones.
And I think when he first came in, he did great, but I think he relied on that French market. Perez, Vieira, Henri, they were the main attacking players. As he got older, everybody knew the French market. Everybody had scouts all over the world now. So you haven't got that knowledge that maybe other people haven't got. And I think he was then trying to catch other managers, because he went from your Vieiras and that, and then Pep had this Barcelona thing, and all of a sudden it was Fabregas, Halep, Brzezinski. So now we're chasing what Barcelona are doing, but we're not as good at them at doing it, and the Premier League is so physical. So for me, I think it's a little bit of both. I think they let him down,
and in the long run, they let us down.
They let us down, but I think Wenger was a part of the problem as well.
Again, this is a good conversation, because I was Wenger out before I was Kroenke out, and the reason being because of that, because he abandoned the philosophy that worked for us. There was a lot of power in the side.
Yeah.
You know, we had the Vieira and Gilberto in the middle, and it went to the Fabregas, Halep, Brzezinski. And I don't blame Kroenke for that. I blame Wenger. And you're right, he probably looked at the Barcelona model at one point before that. We was linked to play in Brazil because of how good we played, and then Barcelona took that mantle. So there is a lot of blame to go on Wenger. But the reason I say short-term Wenger and long-term Kroenke is because a decision should have been made, Julian.
Absolutely.
And that's either sack him or put the right people around him, regardless of what he thinks.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, you asked the question, it was an either-or question.
Yeah.
To me, it was both. And I can understand, hindsight's a wonderful thing. You know, I can understand if I'd gone in as an owner and it was all working so well, and you look at the reasons why, it's because of one man, and also you don't have an understanding of football. And let's face it, they don't know football.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, they call it soccer for a start.
Hence why I think they gave so much emphasis to Wenger.
Yeah, they allowed Wenger to have control, and Wenger was a control freak, and he grabbed it with open arms. Grabbed it.
Yeah.
So I think that they're both to blame, but it's very easy to look back on that now. And there were lots of other reasons, and I think you touched on it, Curtis, with the fact that at that time, the money starts coming in. You look at the years. This is what I was doing once you mentioned it. Yeah, it's like I looked at these things sort of, they fog until you actually go back and see the years. And the money came into, I think Abramovich came into Chelsea 2003,
Our
around
invincible
that.
season was Chelsea's first rich season.
Yeah, and that took them a few seasons to kind of get the money. The Arabs came into City, I think it was something like 2007, 2008,
like that,
and again they took a few years to get going. So that's what I meant by that plane analogy. There were certain things going on that were kind of out of their control. And how do you compete? Because very quickly, unless we get our own sugar daddy, I mean, how on earth do you compete? You've got to be smart. And something you said the other day, which I thought was a really good point, but we didn't have time to elaborate on it. You said, we want an owner that can manipulate the market. And I was really kind of intrigued of what exactly you meant. It's all very well saying, let's get them to manipulate the market, but how can they do it? I've got some ideas, but I'm always interested in what other people say.
I want to be careful about not... I do get the discussion, I really do. But then I also think at times Wenger worked miracles in terms of what he had, what the Kroenkes gave him. You know, I think Robbie told me a stat that, you know, they're the second lowest investors in their football team in terms of out their own pocket, the Kroenkes. Yeah. So what he did with the move of the stadium and everything, I think sometimes gets overlooked, and he did an unbelievable job, because what people forget, I think there's this sort of narrative that money came in, other clubs got good and we got bad. No, there was a good 6-7 year window where he still kept us in the top four, still kept us, won the odd FA Cup, the odd title race that fizzled out around March, Feb, or whatever. You know, actually, you look back on that, you could argue he overachieved in those sense. The odd Champions League semi-final in there.
My point on that, and the way I see that, is you're right if you look at it from that perspective, but I look at it as in the transfer window, Wenger would back himself into a corner, and by the end of the season, he'll punch his way out. And because he's backed in the corner,
and he still
it looks like it was greater than it was, because I put onus on him in backing himself into a corner sometimes. There were sometimes players he should have bought that he didn't, that it took him 2 years to buy. Lacazette's one, you know, Kante instead of Xhaka's another. There was instances before
there were some obvious ones. You know, Mustafi, we bid 17 million, they said we want 25, we said no, a month later, here's 35. You know, there were some moments where you thought,
deals.
This is shocking. And actually, when we signed Granit Xhaka, I remember a lot of German fans and journalists on social media saying, his disciplinary record's not great and he can be quite clumsy. I'm not really sure, he's not really an Arsenal type of... And I thought, we're starting to move away. And I remember the very day I became Wenger out, and it was Watford away. We lost 2-1. Remember the Troy Deeney comments?
Yeah.
Deeney,
It wasn't the
Cojones.
Deeney comments that got me. I saw the 11, and we were playing a 3-4-3 with a front three of Iwobi, Welbeck, and it wasn't Walcott, but it was, I think it might have been, anyway, or Giroud. I remember thinking, what have we become? This isn't with El Neni and Xhaka in midfield. I thought, this isn't, even Wenger at his worst, and he's played great football. What have we become? And so I think they kind of both failed each other, but I look more blame on the Cronkies for me.
Yeah. Julian, back to you. I just want to, because you made a good point there, and you also said that they didn't sack Wenger when they should have. They waited maybe 5 years too late.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
It's easy to do with hindsight.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on Usmanov and the way he was treated on his approach coming into the club?
Okay. I'll make the point that I'm an Arsenal fan, not a football fan. I'm an Arsenal fan first.
Yeah.
And the way that I sometimes talk, I'm criticising other teams for having sugar daddies.
Yeah.
However, the truth is, I would have loved a sugar daddy at
That was going to
Arsenal.
be a question later on.
I'd love it.
Yeah.
It's not fair. It's not fair because I can go on about all the things that aren't fair about the Premier League and the European Super League and loads of other things, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't care because my priority, I want to see Arsenal win. People say, oh, wasn't that a great game? I remember going to Anfield years ago. I think it was a quarter-final or semi-final in a Champions League. It was one really great game. We lost. It was devastating. I'd far rather, I look back at a game at Coventry, crap, absolute crap. 89, 90th minute, Arsenal corner, flick on from Bold, Adams comes in and heads it. Crap goal, loved it.
Yeah.
Came away really happy. So it's my priority is I want to see Arsenal win. That's the first thing. So as regards Usmanov coming in with bags of money, yeah, I'd have loved it.
Yeah.
Is it right? No, I don't care.
Football's not right now anyway.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not right.
exactly.
It's so many things that aren't right.
Yeah.
I'd rather us get some things that aren't right. So I remember one of the games we were watching, and to me it was a dive. I think it was the first Villarreal game, and Saka dived. I think you used the expression, he's just won us a penalty.
Yeah.
How can you win a penalty? The translation of that is, he's just cheated and dived. Great, we're all happy.
Yeah. So slowly but surely it's become a part of the game.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
It's wrong,
But it's
but
great when it happens to us.
Yeah.
The only thing's fascinating. I love because we've not really spoken about this Daniel Ek stuff much.
No.
This is, I got not a bit of heat, but I remember we did a lot of live streams around the Daniel Ek stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone's very excited, and rightly so. I've never seen you that excited ever. And I was saying, look, I do want this to happen, I think. My hesitation was, does he have the money to put into the club? How much debt are we going to go into for this to happen?
Yeah.
What do we know about him? What can he actually do? And that is where I do still, in the same way that I think Arteta should probably lose his job and I want Kroenke to leave, I'm always one of these, but what are we getting in return?
If they go,
I do worry about that because the Kroenkes are very, very rich. And this summer might be the summer that they've been put under so much pressure, things have gone so wrong, that you know what, they might go. I know I'm dreaming, maybe, but they might go, do you know what, this is so bad, we've got a reputation to fix, we've got a club that needs to make money, here's 200 million, because they can click their fingers and do that. So I do have that hesitation, but I've always wondered what you kind of feel on the whole takeover thing.
Yeah, because at the moment we don't know much about Daniel Ek, do we? We don't
Very
know.
little.
Is he going to come in and blow the transfer market up? We don't know. What I have read about him, he's got a lot of friends. He's friends with a guy who owns Facebook and things like that. So I reckon there's a lot of, money men in the background who are probably saying, I'll have part of that, but I don't want my name all over it. So even though he may have, I think they said he's worth 3.5 billion, I think there's a lot of other people who will back it as well. I think we need to know a little bit more about what his plans are. When you say there about the Kroenkes, you make a good point, but I don't think we can trust them to do that.
Too far gone.
I think too much damage has been done for us to say, all right, let's give them another summer and see what happens, because there's no evidence to suggest they will do that.
And the way I see, you're right, we need to know more about Ek before we can fully justify our reasoning for it. But the way I see it in terms of a blanket statement, Sugar Daddy would be a top owner, top priority. Below that would be an owner who cares but might not be the richest, and I put Ek in there. Below that one would be a billionaire that doesn't care, and below that one will be a wealthy owner who doesn't care. I'll put Mike Ashley at the bottom. Kroenke is in that billionaire owner that doesn't care, and I'd put Eck in the, he seems to care, but he's not as rich as the rest of them.
Yeah.
And that's how I tier it. So although Eck might not, you know, come in and change the whole direction of the club, I can trust him a bit more, and I can trust Henri, Bergkamp and Vieira a bit more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To have the best intentions of the club in mind.
Yeah.
So I can't trust Kroenke this summer to do what's right for the club in the next 3 years, but I would trust Henri, Bergkamp and Vieira through Daniel Ek a lot more, Julian. I don't know how you feel about that.
Okay. The players you mentioned, I would trust absolutely in their playing days on the pitch. Just because you're a great player doesn't mean that you're going to be able to come in and run a football team. One thing I would criticise the Kroenkes for is PR. It's something we've mentioned. It's something that Eck's been really good at. If I was Eck, what would I do first of all? I would get a load of Arsenal legends around me and present myself with them. Yeah, and that's what he did. Excellent bit of PR. But the media is very good at manipulating the story and putting their own narrative out. I mean, you only got to look at the way Sky Sports kind of presented the European Super League. Now, to me, again, I'm undecided about the European Super League. Is it good, is it bad? But one thing I was pretty certain about was it would be bad for Sky.
Yeah.
Really bad for Sky. And you've got Gary Neville. I didn't hear him criticise the Glazers when he was taking a paycheck from them. And suddenly he's competing with Lineker for Champagne Socialist of the Year. And I read the beginning.
Ulterior motive from
it's
different
ulterior
individuals,
motive. But he's very credible. Very credible. And I read an article from Sky. I can't remember it verbatim, but it starts off, it was about the Glazers, and it started off about tree-lined palms in, I think the Glazers live in Palm Beach, is it? It's 4,000 miles away from Manchester. So the first thing they're saying is they're saying, right, the Glazers are over there. They kind of set the scene. Like, you can almost visualise it. They're billionaires, so that's a bad thing. They're in these huge mansions, that's a bad thing. And it's 4,000 away from the squalor of Manchester. So they're setting the narrative to manipulate, and then they start bringing it, they're ramping it up even more. Their next door neighbour's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You know, what they're doing, they're setting the scene to manipulate us. So again, I'm not saying the European Super League was good or bad, but one thing I can see through is the reasons for Sky to manipulate us in that way.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to get fooled by it. I want to do my own research.
Well, I've got my own to say about the pundits and everyone that spoke up. You know, Arsenal have been in turmoil for a lot longer than a decade, but no one wanted to speak up about bad owners then. You know, now everyone wants to speak up about bad owners. But
look at Newcastle fans and Mike Ashley. They've been saying, and I can't remember who I was watching on YouTube was saying that, you know, Newcastle fans have been feeling this for years and years and years. They felt hopeless, like they couldn't do anything to affect change on their club. They had an owner who they felt they just felt in his prison, really. And, you know, now suddenly it's all we need to do something about owners. We do, but there's been evidence that for a long, long time. I'm glad people are listening now, but, you know, listen when the small man speaks.
I'm going to ask the same question to you guys I asked Julian. The three entities, manager, owner, or all in between.
It's a great question.
Who would you get rid of this summer if you had to choose?
For me, it's the owner. All day long, because eventually the right owner would shift those guys anyway.
That's how I see it.
Do you know what I mean? He's not going to leave Vinay in position for long. If Arteta's failing, he's going to get rid of him. I think my biggest problem with Stan Kroenke, because you look throughout the team, there are a lot of expensive players in there. So we have spent money. I think my problem is we've seen an owner that doesn't care enough about what's happening at the football club. If I'm the owner of a football club and I've got Alexis Sanchez running down his contract, that can't happen under my watch. So you're allowing the people in charge to just do whatever they want. Just let me see the numbers at the end of the year. As long as I see profit, I don't really care what's happening. And that's the biggest problem. This guy doesn't want to win trophies. He's actually said that publicly as well. So when they're turning around saying be excited and we might spend big, I can't trust that. I have to trust your actions more than what you're saying.
And so that's an indicator of the lack of care that I mentioned the other day in our interview. you know, the overall arcing statement for me would be they don't care. But if you ask me, show me why they don't care. Leaving Wenger on too long would have been one. Allowing big players to go into their last year of the contract would be another.
Yeah.
So,
but then you can look at it another way. I mean, when I played football, I did care. I just wasn't very good. So people could look at me and say, you know, you don't care because you don't perform. I was really trying. I just weren't that good.
Hence why then on top of that I built on it. You don't necessarily have to care, but put the right people in place that do care.
And I don't think we can say, it's another discussion we've had, we don't know what's in their mind. They might have sleepless nights, we don't know. We're translating their actions as they don't care.
Yeah.
They might not be capable of putting the right people in place.
Yeah.
They might really care. They might be crying themselves to sleep every night. We don't know.
Well, I wouldn't say Roman and Sheikh Mansour actually care about football. They care about winning. They care about their reputation. They care about pride and so on.
But they're also they're the sugar daddies. I don't think we should be speaking about them at the same time and comparing them to the Cronkies. It's a different entity.
100%. But when you had Usmanov and that battle ensuing a few years ago.
I was surprised. I mean, I thought the Cronkies at some point would just go with the money.
But the Super League was behind the scenes.
It was behind the scenes.
But they was going for the money.
Yeah, which could have been that answer, as we discussed, you said, to manipulate the market.
Yeah.
That could have been their trump card.
That's a good shout. But that would be manipulating the market, considering where we're coming from to say we're bloody Super League.
It's complex, isn't it? I mean, we've sat here, we've been breaking this all down.
It's not black and white. It's not about, you know, so when that guy hands me the placard, it's not a straightforward, you know, let's hold it up. And that's all I'm trying to do is kind of try and see it from each point of view.
Yeah,
and do you know what? I'm actually really enjoying breaking this down because we've gone from Arteta to Wenger to the Cronkies. Yeah. But when you asked that question about the people in between, I thought you were going to say players. I thought you were going to say, would you rather see a big overhaul?
I can add an overhaul.
Right. But it's so interesting about that kind of layer in between because they arguably have more influence than anyone at the club. You know, they're part of recruitment, they're part of who the manager is, they're part of going to the Cronkies about what they need.
Up and down.
And I think what's fascinating is if you look at Liverpool, Klopp's amazing. He's amazing. But a big credit goes to the people around him and the infrastructure they put in place. So I don't think Henry's considered a superb owner, but actually he just got those bits right. He sat back. And actually I always enjoy talking to my dad about this because he's Cronky as well, but he always says, but the best owners aren't that involved. The best owners put the right people in place, sit back and they don't get, because actually you can have too much. And you know, the right answer is wanting the Cronkies. I'm very confident about that. But there's definitely a discussion to be had about your Vinay's, your Edus and all that, because when Wenger left, I was very enthused. There was Mislintat, Sanyehi, who's that guy at AC Milan? Gazidis, and then a head coach. You thought, that's your four. I get it. I know how they're all going to work and I like it. You've got your scout, you've got your director of football, you've got the negotiator, you've got your coach. Within a year and a half, it was all completely and utterly dismantled. Yeah. I thought, bloody hell. Yeah. And even that, you'd say, gets fixed by Josh. And one of the few things I've liked is that, or not Josh and Stan. I guess one of the few things I've liked, even though I don't think Arteta necessarily merited the role as manager for what he'd done. You know, okay, he won the FA Cup. At least he's somewhat a football person. Yeah. You know, and I prefer that than leaving it to Edu, who's a novice in this role, and Vinay, who I don't even know what he does to this day.
So, okay, so let's say, which a lot of fans did, the clean slate come when Wenger went, and that was a milestone, and we need to look forward. And Emery's gone now. We put Arteta in place at the same time. Tottenham put Jose in place at the same time. Everton put Ancelotti. Now I mentioned Usmanov, and the reason I mentioned Usmanov is because I look at Everton, and Usmanov's behind the scenes with Moshiri. But they put Marcel Brands in a position, and he's got a very good reputation, head of football, technical director, and so on. He's done things within football. They went for a manager who, has a reputation like no other in football, to be honest. He's up there with the very best. Yeah. This season coming now, we all finished pretty much the same level, Tottenham, Everton and Arsenal, whether it was 7th, 8th or 10th, we had a similar season. We're the ones going into next season with consistency, in a sense of we've got the same manager coming in, you've got the same ideas for the last 2 years, but Everton have the people in place. Now I'm worried about Everton because of that. So Curtis, I want to ask you, going into next season, what's the bare minimum in terms of finishing position that you would look at Kroenke and say, okay, you've done something this season?
Top 4.
I agree.
Top 4.
Which sounds mad from where we are, but
from
it's
where
the
we are
truth.
now,
Yeah.
you can't even see how that could happen. But I look at teams like Leicester. Leicester really should have got top 4 this season.
Yeah.
And I always look at their team and I think it's the structure, it's the manager, it's the understanding of the system. When you put a Leicester game on, you know what you're going to see. You know how they play. I've watched Arsenal too many times this season and I don't know what I'm going to see. I don't know what team, what system, what style. Mikel Arteta has to put his stamp on this team this season. He has to get the right kind of players. This team has to know what they're doing. He's got to get the best out of the good players. We saw at the end of the season, Pepe, we're going, where was that in the first 6 months? Why was he getting dropped? What's happened to Aubameyang? One of the best strikers in Europe the last 2 years. Now he looks a shadow of himself.
10 years, really,
yeah, do you know what I mean? So for me, anything below top 4 is unacceptable for this club. What does Europa League mean if we get top 6? Yeah, we've gone from 8th to 6th. You know, that's not enough. You've got to have a summer where the whole club changes direction.
Do you think that's too much? Because Julian, in the modern day, you know, off the cuff, if someone said 4th, and I agree with that,
Yeah.
it sounds mad because we just finished 8th 2 years in a row. But modern day football shows you that you can finish 10th and then win the league title with Chelsea, 7th and then 3rd with United and so on.
Look, I don't think it sounds mad at all. Something you mentioned as a stat was we were 6 points.
6 points.
6 points off 4th place. I think there was like 6 goal difference. So 2 good wins. 2 good wins. Think about the teams we lost to this season.
Yeah.
Burnley at home.
Wolves.
And think how, I mean, even
Villa
the,
Torres.
you know, I mean, even the Villarreal game, I mean, we came off there, sack Arteta, the world's coming to an end. We hit the post a couple of times, we were, you know, inches. Football is a game of margin. So to me, it doesn't sound that mad. Yeah, we need a bit of luck. I don't think we're that far away. I go back to that team when the Kroenkes took over. And the other player I forgot about was Abu Dhabi, who was already crocked by that time. I look back at that team and I look at the team we've got now, and maybe a little unpopular to say, but I think the team we've got now is better than that team when the Kroenkes took over. The actual team's better. And something I didn't really appreciate for Wenger was, I do agree that Wenger overachieved. Looking back on it now, what he achieved with those players, I mean, Denilson, he was garbage, absolute garbage. You had Abu Dhabi, who could have been a great player. He was crocked. You had Baptista. These players were not great players. I didn't realise how quickly those Invincibles were dismantled. So for Wenger to have got that consistency, he definitely overachieved. So I don't think it's mad to think that we can achieve something. I look at the team now and I think we've got the core of a very good team. We're potentially a few players away, but maybe a change of system.
So what's your bare minimum? Would you agree with us and say top 4? Or?
Top 4. And I think it's very achievable.
And if it wasn't to get it, would you look at the manager or owners?
I think we'd have to look at the end of the season.
Yeah, we'll talk again, I'm sure.
Look,
I'm trying to pin you down to some comments there.
Look, at the end, let's say we missed out by a point. You know, it can go either way. I wouldn't sack someone for 1 point. If the football's boring and we haven't got a chance of, and we're sort of 10 points off, then yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. James, let's wrap it up with you. What's your bare minimum for next season?
We were chatting about this on Forever Arsenal.
Yeah.
And actually, that was
I asked October, November in Forever Arsenal, but this time,
Do you know, I've changed my tune. I've changed my tune a little bit, actually. I think top 4 should be the bare minimum that we accept, because if you're just looking at the teams around us, Leicester, we know they can be up there. We also know they can bottle it. City, all right, put them in the top 4. They're getting it. Liverpool, you can put them in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if United are going to take 2-3 steps forward next season or 10 steps back.
Yeah.
I think that Europa League final could be massive, where they just go, do you know what, Ollie's not it, and it might crumble, and they're going to keep Ollie, and that's still to be seen. Yeah. Chelsea, you never know what kind of season they're going to have. You just never know. I think the kind of honeymoon period with Tuchel will have worn off, and actually you're seeing now the Chelsea don't look quite as good. Spurs, you don't know if they're going to get Poch and Conte or Roberto Martinez.
Yeah, it's all mad.
You know, I don't see Villa and Everton really making it up. So there's a gap. We don't have European football. As you said, this is Arteta's chance to prove what a great coach he is. He can have a trimmed down squad. He can sell some players, get the investment he needs. I think in fairness to the Kroenkes, I can't believe I'm saying that, there has been that one marquee signing for the last few years, that one that you go, oh, Aubameyang, okay, oh, Pepe, oh, Partey, you know, that one that, just one or two of those, and then some, as you said, they don't all need to be superstars.
Yeah.
And have a really good go at it. And that's not a target for just Arteta, because I think that would be harsh with everything that's been going on with other clubs and stuff. That's difficult. That's a target for Arteta and the Kroenkes. Kroenkes give him what he needs, Arteta go make it happen. Otherwise, we know otherwise a shake-up's needed, if we don't know that already.
And we didn't get who you would remove if you had the chance. All in the middle, manager or owner?
No, owner. But I just think there's a discussion to be had there. But yeah.
I completely agree. And you know, it's fair to say Edu, Vinay, and them, not because I'd strip the whole ship down and start again, if I'm honest with you. And it starts at the top for me. Any last thoughts, Julian?
I'm still with get rid of that middle management.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the art of good management is delegation, and they've been poor in delegation. But the other side of it, and this is where I have respect for the Kroenkes, is that I respect the fact they are the owners. So we can't say get rid of them. It's up to them. I don't believe in taking it back from them. You know, revolution, going out and sort of kicking down the doors. It's ours. It's ours. No, that's not. It's not what I'm about. It's their club, as in they've bought it. So I would encourage them, if they want to stay, to get rid of that middle management and put something in place that's more effective, that can, as you said, effectively manipulate the market.
Fair enough. James, last thoughts?
You know, believe it or not, unbelievably, I'm a little bit enthused when I'm seeing, you know, Romano saying that, you know, Roma and Mourinho want to take Xhaka from us, that Willian's definitely off, that Bellerin's looking for a new challenge. Turkish break. That's a good start. That's a good start. We know Arteta's going to stay. We know Kroenke's going to have this window at least. So let's just start by getting the players out, getting the right players in. And you know what? All this conversation is great and is right. But if the players don't do it on the pitch, and that's ultimately what it always comes down to, is the players being good enough and doing it. And that for me is kind of the only thing I can really see changing this summer. And with what we've been hearing, it's encouraging. So whatever, ever the optimist I am. But
Let's take it on. Curtis?
For me, we spoke about those three entities, but I want more from the manager, because I think all of those three will still be at the club next season. Same owners, same middlemen, same manager. And I look at this season and I think if Mikel Arteta had figured certain things out quicker, we'd be having a different conversation, because he could have won that Europa League. He could have got in that top four. We've seen managers before have success with owners that we don't even think are that good, because they get the most out of their team. I think ultimately a club is judged on what happens on the pitch. I think the owners have got to back him, the middlemen have got to get him the right players, and then he's got to go and do the business with them. So the pressure's on everyone at the football club at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting 6 months, because I think that's all it's going to take for us.
It's going to be an interesting 2 months as well.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, the transfer window alone. Yeah. I'm interested to see how Arteta does start next season. Especially the first 10 or so games, you know. Yeah. We need to get a few wins under our belt.
Fans will be back.
A lot has to do with luck on that, the fixture list. If we're playing Liverpool, Man City...
No, you've given him his next excuse now.
That's it. We got a difficult
here in 2022. Julian's going to be like, look at the start of the season.
Not helped us out.
Look how good we've been since Christmas, though, you know.
But the reason I'm saying that is because we need to take more of an extended view rather than just over a few games.
I'd argue that in your second full season, I don't care who you play, I expect to see something different.
Yeah.
But I do understand that if you're playing Man City, it's very different to if you're playing Brentford, who might possibly come up. Completely understand. Appreciate you coming down, Curtis. James, bored seeing you as always. Julian, we're going to build on this further. I can see this building throughout the summer and next season too. So you're more than welcome to come on future supporters clubs, and Hopefully, I'm more than welcome to infiltrate some of your interviews.
Yeah.
Just let me know when you don't want me to do it and you have plans with Robbie, so I know not to jump in.
No, it's an open forum.
Yeah.
Good.
That's very good
Yeah.
debate. People, this has been the Supporters Club. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who would you get rid of? Manager, Kroenke, or all in between? Please let us know, and love and peace.